Hi, Misha here, and I have to report that a member of the Mishaco family died at the end of January 2025. Okay, it's not so bad. My headphones, my Earpro. I've been using these MSA Sordins. This is the Extreme Pro for this exact one about a decade. And I think it's only my third set of electronic Earpro. I've had good luck with them. And it literally died right in the middle of a range day. I'll get into it in a minute. And that left me in a bit of a pickle. But the good news is I had recently brought out a couple of Earpro sets for guests to use that were perfectly good, you know, more in the affordable range. And so I thought I'll borrow one of those. Had the Walkers, had the Howards. And I found an interesting issue, especially with the razors, that not only did I not like, but actually made me feel incredibly unsafe. So, what do I do? Because these are dead. Well, replaced them with pretty much the same thing. Although the MSA name is now gone. They're still made in Sweden. They're still Sordin. This is almost the exact same model. And coincidentally, I think basically the same color. That wasn't really the intention. It was just kind of, I bought the cheapest color. I would have been happy to buy pink. This is the Extreme Pro X version. They have a few others. They have some Bluetooth capable ones, which I'm not against, but I figured I'm not never really going to use it. And that's kind of the thing with me. When it comes to firearms, you know, I'll spend the money. When it comes to like electronics, I'll get what I need and I don't mind paying for it. But A, I expect it to last. And B, I don't like paying for things that I'm not going to use. So why did I end up going with another, $300 pair of headphones instead of a $50 or $100 pair? I'll explain. Also, typically in these videos, I edit out the road noise. It's the end of the weekend. It's actually daylight savings time day, Sunday, when I record this. So I'm actually going to leave the road noise in because it will make my point about Earpro. Of course, the cars were really coming by hot and fast a minute ago. Now that I want them to do, they're not going to do that. But that's how life goes. So I will also say that I was able to afford new Earpro, which is extremely important for everyone who shoots, but is literally life-saving and vital for someone who's disabled like me. Anyway, I was able to afford these thanks to donations over on Patreon. This is where the money goes to, protective gear, ammunition, what have you, range targets. Those are coming now that it's no longer frozen, and so on and so forth. So if you'd like to help support Patreon, check us out. We're also back out at the cabin, so whole new slew of range videos incoming. I already started the day on some. But I wanted to pop back in. It's been a month since we've been out here and talk about my new Earpro because I had to emergency order these and got them in and had to wait nearly a month to test them out because of weather. Go into all that. But if you can't help out on Patreon, totally get it. Money's tight in 2025 and doesn't look to be getting any better anytime soon. At least not according to the price of eggs and such. So, if you could at least like the video, share it with friends, look at our older videos, subscribe if you haven't. That stuff costs you nothing. It helps us out. It helps the independent community to a community out. And it's just nice to be neighbors. I'm going to set the new ones aside here for a minute. We'll get back to them. And these are very similar models. We'll talk about the small differences, and if I could even notice. But yeah, picked these up years ago. It was something that Jay recommended. And these were kind of the hot thing at the time. I really liked them. These are the gel cup version, the double seal. These are actually the original cups. And not only are they not torn, they're not even really that hard. I think what helps me on that is constant use. I mean, aside from like illnesses and things like the big freeze where we had to take a month off, we use these almost on the weekly, and when I'm out here at the cabin, 4 or 5 days in a row. So I think just constant use, exposure to oils from the skins, kind of keep them flexible. I think it's when you leave stuff hanging in your garage for months at a time untouched that they get kind of brittle. In fact, I've got evidence of that when we get to the Howard Walker, or the Howards. But yeah, they're still comfortable. They've always sealed well for me, especially with glasses on. The band is easy to adjust, but stays in place. Everything about these I like. And that's why for a decade they worked well. The problem is, they quit working. And it was funny. They never were showing any signs of glitches. And it was in the middle of a range day. It was the day we were doing the M72. We were shooting that morning. Did it a bit. And then my cousin popped out. Not Fox, a different one. And so we visited for about an hour, and I just set him down on the swing here. We were just chatting. And I didn't even really worry about turning them off, because they just use AAA batteries, and they don't chew through them very quickly at all. So I picked them back up, and they were off. I thought, okay, maybe they auto off, or maybe batteries ran dead. No problemo. So popped the batteries out, put new ones in, turned them on. They worked. Cool. For about 30 seconds or a minute. And then they died. Okay. So I took the new batteries out, thought maybe, they're just cheap Amazon batteries, the bulk ones. So got another set. Same thing. Now this might be a known issue on forums. I confess that, things like electronic Earpro, when I find something I like, I kind of ignore it. The thing. It works for me. Cool. New technologies. In fact, I know that after these were kind of the hot thing for a while, I also like that they compact up. There were people that kind of went away from them to newer things, rechargeables and Bluetooth and even those little earbud things. Those kind of bother me. I know they work, but I always feel like they shouldn't. Anyway, one thing that was always criticized was the chirping, which is actually feedback, audio feedback. Real easy way to not have that happen. Instead of turning them on when they're together like this, where they get the mics together and then there's a feedback loop, and that's the chirping you hear, put them on your head first, off, and then turn them on. Except these don't work, but if they did, yeah. That prevents that. In fact, I never even heard the chirping for the first couple of years of owning these. And I thought, well, maybe it's an update or a glitch or I don't know. But no, I eventually one time turned them on when they were together like this and, yeah, heard it. But, of course, when you take it off, they don't. I don't know. Again, I don't forget the forums. There might have been other complaints. But, again, they did everything I needed them to. They were comfortable. They worked with my glasses. They were obviously durable enough. They were relatively compact. Small enough for government work at any rate, compared to other electronic Earpro. And most importantly, they protected my earballs. So, I don't mind paying for that. I really don't. In fact, I went back and looked at my Amazon purchase order, which was actually in 2015, so these are right at a decade old, and I paid $270 for these in that money, that economy. And today I bought the new set for $300, $299 or $298, I think it exactly was. I ended up getting green again because they were slightly cheaper. I think the black ones were like $319, $315, I don't know. So when you really kind of figure inflation, they've either stayed the same or maybe even gotten cheaper. But of course, there is also the change in branding. These are MSA. And from the little bit I know, the company was bought out, and now this. So did the quality suffer? was the difference in the Extreme or the Supreme Pro and the Supreme Pro X, and what do I think after taking these to the range for the first time? And also, why did I have to own up and buy another set of expensive Earpro when I had 2 Walkers and a Howard around here already, much cheaper? And my journey with electronic Earpro started pretty early on when these came out. In fact, this is one of the reasons I got back into shooting. As you can understand, being blind, I need my sense of sound. And growing up in the 80s and 90s, you basically just had the old, mechanical, this physical Earpro. I felt very disconnected. I couldn't hear people at the range. I couldn't hear it. It made shooting very uncomfortable and frankly unsafe for me. But an old friend of mine who we lost about 20 years ago now, he had cancer. He was also my town gunsmith, and he lived across the street from my grandmother. He heard about the electronic Earpro. This is still back when they were analog, before they were truly digital. And I believe it was a Remington brand. It was an American brand. I don't remember. He took me over and helped me buy a pair. And at that time, they were about $100, which 25 years ago was not insignificant money. But it was one of the key factors that got me back into shooting in college, because I could safely shoot. And those lasted a very long time. And I did have a set after that and before the MSAs, and I don't remember what it was, but it was just in between. Either way, 2 sets lasted me almost 20 years. And I mostly went to these because they were new and they had some better features, digital by that point, and they were using standard batteries, AAAs. That there was a time when they were using kind of the smaller batteries that were a lot more expensive, and using AAA was one of the attractive features while still being small. Now the trade-off is with these, you have this end cap to chop batteries out. Now I do like that it's not just a panel on the side that it comes off. Those always get loose and break on me. This secures them in very well. Also protects your batteries from water. But, won't lie, getting the batteries out of the Sordin could be easier. I understand why it was one of those compromises for design. I do. And I got used to it. And again, it's not like you have to replace batteries every 2 weeks. Even though I use mine very heavily, I only had to replace batteries like once a year. Maybe at most 6 months if I forgot to turn them off once or twice. So, for something that you basically have to do the same time you do spring cleaning, I'll live with it. And I got pretty used to it. It's not so bad. You just kind of got to knock them. So anyway, that's, one of the things that was attractive. And it really got me into shooting and kept me there to this very day, starting my whole career. So thanks to Electronic Earpro, I have a livelihood and a YouTube channel and all that. That's why it's so dang important. So, back to that day when these, finally bit the bullet. Well, I had recently brought out 2 sets of Walker razors that a friend donated. I told you I'd leave the sound in. It just is kind of range headphones, that way if something happened to them, they got left out or damaged or someone walked off, no big deal. But some people were showing up with the old style ones, and they couldn't hear me talking.
All right, we're rolling. What you got?
Stop it there for a second.
Huh?
Stop for a second.
Oh.
And it actually led to some incidents. Nothing dangerous, but kind of funny.
Tell me that again.
Start over.
Yeah. I'm rolling.
No, just stop it for a second.
Huh?
Just stop for a second. So with the cabin, I decided, you know what? I want everyone to have electronic Earpro for safety and convenience, and it just works out great. So I thought, okay, great. I'll grab these off the rack and try using them. Never really had messed with them, except, trying them on and whatnot. So First up on the fitment. These are just the old cups. These aren't gel cups. I definitely don't feel like the seal is as good. And it definitely, although it isn't the worst, kind of presses my glasses into my head. You know, for 30 minutes, no big deal. But if all day, I could see. Now, they are kind of bigger cups. So they definitely get my ears covered. But they're also shallower. The band's fine. It kind of feels like it's built for a bigger head than mine in general, but they're okay. So fitment was fine. I'm just so used to the MSAs that it was a little discombobulating. And, you know, reaching around for controls, the MSAs have 3. I like it. Nice rubbery buttons. You know, volume up, volume down, and then start, stop in the middle. This one just has a dial. Luckily, it is a very clicky dial. And I do like that, you know, dial buttons have their purpose. You can really finely adjust the sound, and they get pretty loud. And again, there is a click to turn it off, but, you know, dials can get in your range bag especially. Something like that can get rotated. Because of the MSAs being recessed, I never had problems with it getting hit. Also, you have to hold down about a second. So that, yeah. So I put them on. Sounds okay. Got controls. And then I realized something real quick. And it really started to, it first annoyed me, then started to really scare me. These are situational. They're omnidirectional stereo sound. You can, you know, you can close your eyes, try it out if you have a set like these. You can tell where something's coming from. You know, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It lets you know where things are in relation to you. These do not. They're strictly mono. Sounds exactly the same to me. So, when I was getting ready to shoot, when Fox would say something, it sounded to me like Fox was directly in front of me. I knew in my head he wasn't, but I'm firing a damn gun. It was really distressing. It made it actually difficult to pull the trigger out of instinct. I had to really make sure he was behind me and where I knew he was at. With the old headphones, I knew who people were. And if I didn't, I held my fire. You know, you might think, and rightfully so, how can I shoot safely? It's being diligent. It's knowing my limitations, and it's knowing when I can be safe and not be safe. It's one reason I don't go to a lot of public ranges and stuff. With these, I really don't feel comfortable. I really don't. Plus, again, the cups aren't great. I barely could get through a day with these. Now, I understand if you can see fine, these might be a good choice, especially if you're just a casual shooter. And they're cheap. They're $50 or less new. So, cool. And they do have a much easier to access battery compartment if that's a big deal to you as well. But I realized that day, even temporarily, these wouldn't work. So it was on my immediate to-do list to research what to buy next. Again, I've been out of the market for a decade. And a friend had told me MSA was out of business as a brand, which is technically true. But I did have one more type. The Howard Leights, it seems German, are just a little bit more than the Walker. Maybe 10, 15 bucks. So maybe just slightly higher end, you'd say. And since JO's pair was out here, that's another one I could try. And it's another popular brand. Have a dial here if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. And I'm happy to report these are situational, omnidirectional stereo sound. I don't think they're quite as precise as the MSAs, but yeah, worlds better. That feature alone I don't think it's just me. I think it's a must for everyone. I think you need that. I'm kind of amazed the walkers don't have it, at least not the Razor. The volume, I mean, I've got it up all the way. They seem a little kind of quieter to me, but they're okay. It's also a dial. I would still kind of think about it getting hit in the range bag, but hey, whatever. But they don't fit my head quite as well, and they are kind of blockier. These are taller but thinner. These are a little bit wider. And those cars sound loud to me, even though because they're not making as good of a seal with my head. Now, again, these are just the generic, cotton-filled just synthetic cups. You can get gel cups for the Howards, but they cost $40-50 more. So at that point, you're in the Earpro over 100, 120. So not quite halfway towards MSA's, but getting there. I could definitely see a pair of these as being a gel cup and filled one. I would definitely make that upgrade. I think it's worth it. And that's kind of a good in-between. These are, I only go shooting once every 6 months type deal, maybe once every 3 months. And I only shoot for an hour or two. That's the walkers. The Howards, I think, with the cup upgrade, it would be like, I go shooting once a month, maybe every 2 months if I'm busy, and I shoot for 2-3 hours. I think there's just slightly better, and so I do like these, but I can't risk it with my ears, guys. That's one of those things that doesn't heal. Once you do noise damage, and we all pretty much have it living in the modern world, especially shooters, no matter what, and musicians. But once you damage, it's damage. That's it. And hearing loss runs in my family already. Anyway, I had a deaf grandmother, and almost all the men in my family, once they hit 60, 70, lose it. So I can't afford to do that. Thank God that hearing aid tech is a lot better than it used to be, but still, I digress. So the 2 sets that I had to try out, one was a absolute hell no, this is unsafe, I'm not feeling it. And the other one was, this is okay, but it's a definite downgrade from what I had before. So, yeah, thanks for playing, but you're out. Again, good for guests, though, when they have nothing or even the old, non-electronic. I'll give it that. So why did I go back here? Part of it, of course, is familiarity. They work. And I know people have moved on, and I know there were some complaints about they don't have quite the sound level protection as some of the higher end ones in their same area. Now, I appreciate that if you're shooting at an indoor range or a very crowded outdoor range. I do not do either of those. I also appreciate it if you're shooting ultra high power things like 50 BMG, or maybe you're shooting a lot of short barreled stuff all the time. But those aren't things I do, purpose and need. I just don't do that. Interestingly, in Sweden, in Europe, these aren't just marketed to shooters, although that does seem to be their primary market. They're actually marketed to people working in construction and factories, and boy howdy can factories get loud. So, they fit just as well. One thing I kind of like is these gel cups are, there's no break-in with them. At the same time, as we've seen with my old ones, they don't get hard. Those Howards of J-Rose, the cups are already kind of getting stiff, mostly because they've been hanging in there, not really used much. He hasn't been out in a while because of his new job. It happens. So, at first, same nice controls, same battery compartment. Again, I'm used to it. I didn't have any trouble. I'm fine. But there are 2 modes now. It has a new one. These did not. You just, on off. I'm not sure. I think they call it hunting mode or whatever. I'm actually not sure which is which. But there's a definite difference. Wow, one thing I also like about these, there's a definitive beep. the kind of new mode, 2 beeps. The more traditional mode, 1 beep. To me, the difference in the modes, the one that's more like the original, it is a little more amplified. Like, you can hear little noises, which I like. I can hear virtually a pin drop, and it is loud, but it's situationally loud. And I like that. Some might also say it's a little tinny, a little more electronic-y. I would say so at the highest volume, but if you knock it down about midway, a lot of that, and it's not horribly electronic, but I remember when I did switch from analog to digital electronic Earpro, I noticed that too. I've gotten so used to it now that I don't, but I get what they're saying. But yeah, knock the volume down a bit and it helps. And I like it for sit rep. The new mode, it sounds, honestly, it sounds a lot like the old-fashioned, like I can hear my jacket really loud, but it's almost muffled, but intentionally. It really knocks down on any of that kind of sharp noise. Almost makes me wonder if it's for use with people who have like hearing aids in, because I know hearing aids and electronic Earpro can do weird things together. So I don't have hearing aids. I don't know. I definitely hear the difference. I still prefer the original style, but I really think having the second style is good because it addresses a couple of the issues that people originally had, and it's a click of a button to go between. One final thing I'll say, it keeps your volume in between the modes. I like that. Everything else is the same. I went with the leather band. It is actual real leather. Why not? I think they have a cloth one. They were synthetic, but it's a little softer, and I don't know. Just kind of like it better. These, like I said at the beginning, are the Supreme Pro X, and from what I understand about the Pro, it basically means they're built a little tougher, a little more durable electronics. It also means that they're supposed to be waterproof or at least water resistant. That kind of gets touchy, you never really know. For example, the battery compartment's sealed off. The microphone pickups got a little membrane on them, sealing them off. I will say that the old ones I used in the rain, I never dunked them in a river, but they definitely got wet, and I had no issues. And it can happen. So definitely, and if nothing else, sweat. You know, I don't sweat all that bad, but a lot of folks do, especially when we get to our wonderful 100-degree and 110% humidity summers here. So don't forget about this moisture from the body. And I also find that, you know, that moisture, once it dries, can really dry out the more traditional ear cups too. Again, with the gels, haven't had any major issues. And actually, the reason I went immediately to looking at Sordins again, right after I got back and was about to search on Amazon, Henry, 9-hole, called me about other things. I think we were talking about the new AP53. Done a video on that. So was 9-hole, so check them out if you haven't. And I said, hey man, my Earpro broke. What do you recommend now? What's kind of the cutting edge, latest and greatest things that you kids are into? Henry's a little bit younger than me, but has also a boatload more military experience than I do. And he said, yeah, the Sordins. I was like, oh, are they still knocking them out? Are they still, you know, after the brand name change and everything? He goes, oh yeah, that's what I use. And I thought, cool. I know it, I like it. Looked at the price, it was virtually the same. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Unfortunately, these is broke, so I don't have a choice. But I'd rather stick to something I know. And the thing is, these are $300. That's expensive. They can go way up from there, though, guys. I get compared to the Walkers and the Howards, they're expensive. You can get $500, $700, $1,000 Earpro, and some folks do. Some that are literally professional shooters probably look at these the same way I look at the others, because they're literally wearing them 6 hours, 8 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week. I get that. The reason I picked the Sordins, again, they fit my needs, my requirements, my usage level best. And I think I think the price is commensurate with my level of use. And I think not just with electronic Earpro, anything in life, that's very important. Don't overbuy but also don't cheap out when it's something actually important. But yeah, first day of daylight savings time, even though we're starting to lose light now. And since this is a bit of a change, I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about. And we don't always have to talk about guns here, but we will. I did test these out with this guy. Yet another MP5 style gun. But that's for the next video. Let me know what you think. What Earpro do you use? Which ones have you tried? Positives and negatives. I would really like to hear what everyone thinks. With that, like I said at the beginning, really desperately appreciate everyone on Patreon because I was able to get these immediately instead of having to wait. That's where that money went for February. And to that end, we'll put them to good use here in March. But if you can't, that's understandable. Just please like, share, and subscribe. And more importantly, check out some of our older videos. This is Misha. Catch you very soon with new Earpro next time. And they're easy to turn off.